Faith is the state of total let go. Faith, there is no belief in faith. A person who has faith doesn't have belief because they don't insist the world. They have faith in it. A person, it's like a person who is on the lake and they're drowning. What does a person who is drowning do? A person who is drowning will be flailing around and just tossing and going and doing everything they can to save themselves. This is a really good picture of reactivity. This is a real good picture of anxiety. I'm not trying to belittle the drowning process. I'm trying to say that imagine that's the psyche. Imagine that is the psyche. And when the psyche is drowning and it's grasping after. This is a person who has a lot of beliefs. They are making sure they are grasping after life, because life has to confide, or it has to be the way that they conclude it to be. It has to be that way. And the conclusions, these final conclusions about being a sinner, about having to be saved, there's a heaven and hell, and some people are going to heaven, some people are going to hell, separation, all these things have to be true. That's why it's self-consuming. Looking then at the person who is drowning in the lake, how do they save themselves? Well, the camera's falling, sorry. I'm not rich, I don't have those big highfalutin things. How do they save themselves? Well, if they're right here in the lake right here, you tell them to stop flailing around, calm down, and just breathe deeply. Stop moving. Allow. Trust, allow, be thankful. That's the position of faith. There's no clutching. Because there's a person, here's an interesting thing to consider. An atheist has as much faith as a Christian. A Christian has as much faith as an atheist, which is net zero. And why is it net zero? Because when the atheist goes out into the world, they do everything they can to make sure that God isn't anywhere. So whatever they see, they're always working to translate it as though God doesn't exist, because if God exists, then they can't be an atheist, because they've identified as an atheist. They see themselves as an atheist. The Christian who sees himself as a Christian identifies through Christianity. And so whenever they go out into the world, they're going to see the world through the Christian lens. They're going to define all their spiritual ontology, everything that happens to them through a Christian paradigmatic lens, and they will insist that. And this is why neither one is objective. It's because they're always insisting the world is the way that they have defined it to be.
Faith is the approach which says, well, I have faith that there's a God, but I don't insist in my life and in other life that there is. It's kind of like, think of the yin and yang, right? Everybody's familiar with the yin yang. You have the dark side and the light side, okay? Well, the idea in life is to be the gray in the middle, or where there's not even gray, just to be the non-existent line between the two, between the black and white. That's the place of equilibrium, in the center. Now that's the idea. That's the position of faith, because it's not taking one side and it's not taking the other side. It's just rolling. Now this is the idea that Watts had in his lectures when he talked about dancing. Life is a dance, and that there isn't a meaning to it. You make the meaning to it by dancing. It is the dance which brings music to life, which brings meaning to life, which evokes energy, which evokes God out of life, is the participating in life. Well, if I'm pinned down with beliefs that only allow me to participate in certain aspects of life as a dancer, I'm always going to be tripping on the floor, to put it metaphorically, because the floor is going to have all these pitfalls, all these things I'm supposed to believe, all these certain ways I'm supposed to act. I have to love my neighbor. I have to accept Jesus. I have to follow the way of Christianity. I have to do all this stuff. And it's just like giving a professional dancer a whole bunch of instructions when he or she is trying to do a performance. Just let them dance. They just have to dance. You see? And that's life. You just have to let it go. You have to let it go. You can't be clingy. And and beliefs make you clingy. They make you hang on to things. And so you start acting and behaving just funny ways, and you start saying funny things, you know? And I talked about that in some of my videos, some of the funny things. And this is a person who is self-consumed with their beliefs, because they think the idea in Christianity is about beliefs, and the more you believe, the more faith you generate, and that's a lie. That's just a bold-faced lie, and I've been explaining why it's a lie. Now, when you constantly are putting yourself into your non-intrinsic nature, right? When you're constantly doing that, you are constantly pulling yourself out of accord with yourself and with the natural world around you. You're constantly pulling yourself out of accord with it. And when you persistently do that over and over again, you generate a needy, a life that's demanding and needy. And you need beliefs. You need all these dependencies that you've been leaning on, because you learn to take on life through all these specifics. And you pick apart and fragment life into all these pieces and all these specific ways that you're supposed to respond to them. This is how you develop a reactive life. Is by splitting life up like that. And that's when you start getting, folks, well, this is what, also I use this word engender a lot today, I don't know why, but this is also what's engendered in Christianity, is all these different personalities, because you have all these different beliefs that as a dancer you're trying to dance around. So when you're this part of the floor, you have to dance a certain way. So when you go to church, you have to dance a certain way. So you're not going to be cursing when you're in church, right? You're not going to say the stuff that you say on Monday morning when you show up for work. You're not going to be as cynical as you typically are. You're not going to be behaving in a certain way. And so you have changed your dance. You've changed your dance. And then Monday morning comes along and you got to go to work. Well, then you're going to put on an entirely different costume for that. An entirely different value system in many ways. I mean, you won't go against the real core sense. It's like you're not going to go out and have a bunch of affairs and stuff and go, drink your life into oblivion. Typically you're not going to do that. But things like cussing, white lies, kind of saying, well, I can't get home at this time when you really can, or I can do that when I really can't, and just make important, these kind of things. You know what I'm talking about. And it's a different dance. It's a totally different dance. And then you hang out with all your friends on Friday night. And you go out with all your buddies, you drink, you smoke, you have a good time and party with all your friends. You're cussing up a storm. You're saying all the stuff that you want to say at work and that you want to say at church, right? Because with all your friends, they're not going to judge you. You know you're going to get judged at church if you do that. So the only place that you're really dancing, your real dance, is when you're with your friends. Well, this is tragic. This is tragic, because the whole point in life is to simply be free to dance. And it's beliefs that's at the core of this stuff, because what you believe determines your behavior.
The reason why Christianity presses itself into people through fear, through threat, is because it's a belief system. And so in order to get people to believe you, you have to preload their mind. And the way it's preloaded in Christianity is guilt. By saying you're a sinner, and you have to resolve that. That has to be, you have to resolve that. And so because you have to resolve that, you have instilled into someone a needy, dependent situation. Right? A needy, dependent, gotta resolve it situation. This is why I'm always saying that Christianity often causes dependency. Because it places needs into you, because it's filling you with beliefs, and the beliefs have to be defended, they have to be assured, they have to be withheld, they have to be supported. And you can only allow so much free thinking before you have to say stop. Which is why so many people are calling me a loon and, telling me to stop and these kinds of things. It's because they're full of fear. And they haven't realized the life of faith. And it's very hard. It was very hard for me as a Christian to be told that I had no faith. because I really thought that the more belief I had, the more ardently I supported my beliefs, the more ardently I stood for them and understood them and so forth, for those beliefs, the more faith I had, and that's nonsense. That's completely psychologically illegitimate.
You are welcoming yourself to fear when you have a bunch of belief criteria. The unity that's demanded in Christianity, in all things, in essentials, unity. See, that is the very core, the very beginning of that statement. You've gone off course. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying, ask yourself. This is the whole constantly in meditation that Paul was talking about in the Bible. Constantly in a state of meditation. A person who is in a constant state of meditation is a person who is in a constant state of considering their dance in the world, but not considering in the sense of thinking about it all the time, but considering in the sense of, I am going to participate and be fully present in the world. That's how I mean when I say considering the world, and I think that's what Paul meant. In a state of presence, you are there mentally, you are there with your shin, your heart, mind, and you're there with the amalgamation of both. All three, the Trinity, all three are always present all the time. That's the state of faith, in my opinion.
And this is the kind of stuff that, to me, I'm not saying that I'm right. This is the important part. I'm saying you better take a look at it, because I have found some serious unresolvable flaws. These are not flaws like, okay, we can go find a good theologian, a good theologue here, and he's going to save the situation and he's going to make everything right. My pastor can prove this guy wrong. It's not about proving anything. I have nothing to prove. That's the funny thing, is I have nothing to prove. Absolutely nothing to prove. I have nothing to sell, nothing to prove. The only thing I'm doing is I'm coming back and I'm sharing this information with you so that you can triangulate, because that's what adults do with their life. They triangulate their life. And I'm not trying to shame you in saying that. I'm saying that's what adults do. Just like adults take care of their family. That's what an adult does. When they have a family, they take care of the family to the best of their ability, because that's what an adult does. And so an adult is responsible, is self-responsible for the telos that they set up in their life. You're responsible for that, and that's why this stuff is important to consider. That's why I've spent so many freaking hours doing it. And it's freaking painful. It hurts. Because it's hard to be wrong. It's hard to admit that, it's hard for me to admit that I spent the better part of 35 years of my life caught up in a system that was so harmful to me psychologically, which I've explained, I just see my friends all around me, I see people all around me being harmed by this thing for all the reasons that I've given you, that I don't need to go through again, that are legitimate. They're legitimate. I see it all happening all around me, and it's tragic, and it's like a virus, because they all are spreading it into their kids through indoctrination, which I've already shut down, and it just keeps continuing, and so it's like you're sitting, it's literally like sitting in front of a madhouse, a madhouse where everyone is behaving as though they have it all figured out. I had a person write me recently and say, how can you call me insane, or what, I'm a crazy person, what's the matter with you, these kind of things. And the first thought I had was, would a crazy person know that they're crazy? I mean, I sure didn't. I had no idea that I was completely out of my head. I should say completely in my head, because Christianity is a simulacrum. Of course I didn't. Because I didn't know. And the problem is, now you're finding out from me. That's the problem. Now I'm being the Trojan horse. I'm kind of being to you what you were to your kids. Except in this case, you're an adult. You can actually think it through. That's where I'm not being unfair. I'm not indoctrinating something into you, because you're an adult and you can think this thing through.
So what does a life based on faith rather than a life based on beliefs look like?